Okay, Julie here with Just Plain Fun, and today I'm going to show you how to make reversible blocks for quilting. And it's like a quilt as you go, where you make your block and then you quilt it and then you join it to other blocks. But in this instance, you're actually putting the batting in while you piece your blocks as you go, as you piece them. And so if you take a look at this one, the rail fence, part of a rail fence, rail fence, it's actually also rail fence on the back side. And then I quilted it after I was done putting it all together. So basically what you're going to do is you start off with the center and you work your way out. The batting that I'm using for this is the batting that's on a roll, meant basically for the jelly roll rugs. I thought, well, why not make quilts with it? It's thin and it works well on the machine. It's somewhat a little bit stiff, but not bad. I think it has something in it. It's not adhesive, but it has some sort of something inside of it to keep it from coming apart, but it's still very, very supple. You can fold this up and it will keep its shape. It's pretty cool. Of course, this fabric has not been washed, so because I'm using, jelly roll strips or 2.5 inch wide strips, I'm actually using yardage and some from rolls of 2.5 inch strips. But this one here is a 2.25 inch strip, and basically what you're doing is you're cutting off your batting from a roll. This is not the expensive type. This was a little bit less expensive. It does not have adhesive on it. It's 2.25 inches wide by, let's see, how many feet did I get? Oh, let's see. I thought I got 50 feet. But anyway, it says 12 by 12. Yeah, it's 50 yards. Okay, I got 50 yards in this. And it cost me like just over $20. So I didn't think that would be too bad. I think this is enough batting here for a throw. So we'll see. And since I've actually made a king-size quilt and a queen-size quilt in this method, so I absolutely know this works. The king-size bed is on one bed in my house, and the other quilt went to my stepson who got married last year in July. This is June 18th, 2020, during the pandemic, and so I haven't been really making videos lately. But anyway, I thought I'd introduce this method to you. I'm not sure what I'm going to call it. I was going to call it Quilt As You Piece, but I decided it actually works better if you quilt it after you're done piecing it. But here is the basic idea. You start off with your center and you work your way out. And this is not secured down at all. So these center pieces, because this batting is 2.25 inch wide, if you use 2.5 inch wide, you don't have to trim your 2.5 inch strip. But since this is 2.25 inch wide and your batting should go to the edges, basically what you do is you put your layers together, and just to double check, but then you apply your glue. And you don't really want to put the glue all over, just on the edges. And you don't even have to put it on the very two ends, just on the sides, because you just want to keep this in place. And this actually helps with sewing it together eventually, because it keeps the fabric in place, and you do not need a walking foot for this. And I have a brother SQ9285 sewing machine, and that's what I use to make these. So this side I would go in and press it, but you can also go ahead and glue the other side before you take it to the iron. And then you just draw a bead. You can do little dots if you want. I am using Elmer's school glue in a dispenser to do this, but you can also use those little tiny glue sticks that people like to use for what's it called, English paper piecing, and that glue works good too. You could use a spray glue, but like I said, this is actually less expensive. You could use pins. You can also thread baste if you want to. And then you're going to take this over to the iron and you're going to iron it. And I will be right back after I do that and show you the next step. Okay, I'm back, and I've taken the first step of ironing these together, and then the next thing I do is I glue the front and back piece to the edge. I'm going to take this one, flip this over, and what you want to do is you want to glue it to the edge just like this. You glue it down, then you flip it over, and then you take your next piece. And yes, it sticks out 1/4 of an inch because the center strips are 2 1/4 and the rest of them are 2 1/2. That's why it's jelly roll friendly. Then you're going to put this next 2 1/2 inch strip on, and you're going to glue that in place. And then you're going to iron it down. Alright, so let me go ahead and get the glue applied. And you want to make sure that you're doing the glue on the same exact side on both sides, front and back. Alright, and then you're going to go ahead and when you get both sides glued, you go to the iron, you iron it down, and then you take it to the sewing machine to go ahead and stitch it. And make sure you're using a 3/16 of a seam allowance so that your center strip is 2 inches wide. Because this is 2 1/4, your seam allowance actually should be 1/8 inch. And that's why it's important you glue it down so that you'll get the accurate stitch. So 1/8 inch seam allowance on this side, and after you glue it down and you iron it, then you come back and you're going to do the same thing on the other side. So I will be right back as soon as I've got these put together and this one side done. Okay, I'm back and I have gotten them stitched, and as you can see, this is a good technique to use for assembly line sewing. So I'm going to go ahead and snip that apart. Okay, and because I was able to, you're able to assembly line sew them if you're going to make a whole bunch of blocks all at once. Right now I'm just doing 3. So I've gotten this stitched, I've got this stitched, got this stitched, and I got this stitched. Now I'm going to do the other side. So what do I do with the other side? Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and set 2 of them aside. And then what you're going to do is you're going to go to the iron. You're going to open up your seam. I did do the 1/8 of an inch here. Not sure if you can really see it, but it's there. It doesn't focus. Never mind. But it is there. There's an 1/8 of an inch seam there. And then you're going to open it up. And because you glued it, you're going to want to make sure that you kind of tug on your seam allowance. Not too hard. Just enough to release that glue. You don't want to rip out your seam, and you don't want to distort too much. So gently pull it. You're going to repeat that with both sides. It's imperative that you glue though, because for accuracy. And it's a good way to baste. It's cheap because you're using liquid school glue from Elmer's, and I promise you it'll wash out. And well, it's going to take me just another moment to get this undone gently. You don't want to distort it too much. Okay, and then you take it over to your iron and you're going to press this open. And I'm going to go do that right now, which I should have done already. Okay, so I've pressed it open, and the next step to do, believe it or not, is to just go ahead and open this up to expose your seam allowance. And you're going to take your next piece, apply your glue just to the edges. Well, actually, in this case, you actually want to apply it to your fabric. And if you worry about yourself being messy, just slide a piece of paper towel underneath it. But I'm not going to worry about it. I like to put a spot of glue, just a little bit, down this edge here, which kind of helps glue the batting to the batting. You don't need much. And on the edge you want a little bit more. Just a little bit. You want to keep it in place. And then on this edge, you want to put little dots here. And you want to put dots on this edge. You can use, like I said before, you can use glue stick if you want, but I find that to work just fine. And then you're going to, let's see if I can turn this around so you can actually see what I'm doing. Pull this back. Okay, what you're going to do here is you're going to put your batting butt to butt. You're going to put the edges of the batting together. Line it up carefully because these batting strips are cut to length, 10.5 inches. Actually, I made them slightly longer than 10.5 inches, like by about maybe less than 1/4 of an inch. But you're just going to pat it down, pressing from the inside out. And then you're going to flip this up because you've got this bead of glue here, and you're going to smooth it down. And I'm not applying a lot of pressure, I'm just pushing it out to make sure that it seals. Then you take this over to the iron, do that again, and then you're going to do the same thing on this side. So that way you end up with these two stitched to the center. Blah blah. Okay, so basically that's how you build the blocks. You repeat this step for both sides, and then you're going to repeat what I just did by adding the pieces onto this to the center. You're going to add the next pieces, do the same thing, and I did glue this down. And because when I do this quilt, I'm going to try to do a sampler, or it's a semi-sampler. It's going to have repeats of the same block, but I'm going to do a series of different blocks. So by the time I'm done doing this particular quilt, I'm planning on doing 30 blocks, but not 30 blocks of this. 30 blocks of maybe 4 or 5 of each. We'll see, probably 5 of these blocks. And I'll arrange them in a manner that makes sense. Who knows? But what I plan on doing is putting sashing on all the way around each block to separate it. And it's going to be 2.5 inch wide sashing. It's going to be a tone-on-tone white with cornerstones. And that'll tie everything together. And the back side will basically be the same pattern. And this is just the first block in a series of blocks that I'm going to show you how to do. This is basically it in a nutshell. You're just going to do the same thing on the other side and work your way this way, and then you're going to work this way, so you end up with a block that looks like that. And that's basically it. It's a matter of repetition, stitching it down, and then when you're done putting your block together, you can quilt it. You can quilt it however you want. I just chose to use a wavy line on my particular sewing machine, my SQ9285, I think that's what it is. Yes, I have, it's number 28. It's kind of a squiggly, and the settings that I use to get this is 1.8 is the length, the stitch length, and the width is 7. And that's basically how I did that. Oh yeah, and I made sure that I used a zigzag foot so that you could go like this. Okay, so that's basically how you do this type of reversible quilt block building. I'm hoping that as time goes by and you watch this series of blocks, I'll show you and teach you some more. But that's basically it. I hope you get this in a nutshell. I mean, I hope you get this and understand what I'm doing. If not, just go ahead and ask questions, leave them in the comments, and I will answer them on my next video. Okay? Alright, until next time, thank you for watching, and until, I figure out what I'm going to do for the next block. Until next time, thank you again and have a great day, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that little bell so you can be reminded of or told when the next video comes out for this. And eventually I'll show you how to put the blocks together in the way that I'm thinking. Okay, goodbye.